Happy New Year, our first episode of 2020. This is BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics. I'm your hostess, Trisha Schmalhofer, and I have Elizabeth Stamper in the studio today. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Trisha.
I love Elizabeth, and the first time I actually heard about her before I even met her. And the first time I ever met her, she was hosting a dance, I always call it soul dance, but
Yeah.
is that what you called it?
Yeah.
It was a group, and she's like a wonderful DJ, by the way. Like, she has really good music skills, but she would play music from all different genres and cultures, and we would just dance. And it was such a freeing, enlightening, empowering experience. And then Elizabeth is a counselor. Are you a psychologist, mental health counselor?
A licensed mental health counselor.
Licensed
psychotherapist.
A psychotherapist. So we would do circles before or after and share about our experience. And once I met her and went to a few of those events, then I started doing more things with Elizabeth. And then I helped facilitate a retreat with you last year.
That was wonderful.
And we're about ready to do another event next weekend on January 10th and 11th. It's a Reiki immersion weekend. So we're teaming up with another gal, Tali Tucker, another fabulous healer. She's amazing. So Elizabeth, welcome. So glad you're here. And I just love you. You just radiate love and peace and serenity. And I love having you here and just being around you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That feels really good to hear that. receive that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw your logo, that contemplating, badasses, alchemist, mystic. So I can relate to alchemist. I can definitely relate to mystic, since I've been on a spiritual path for over 40 some years. Badasses. I don't know that I've ever been called a badass.
Well, I'll tell you how you're a badass.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yes.
Because you're definitely an alchemist, because you're a therapist. You help people shift from one state to another. So you are definitely an alchemist. Plus you facilitate breath work, which we're going to talk more about, which is alchemy. I mean, that is transformation. And yes, you are a mystic. You channel, you bring in transmissions, you speak, you are bringing spirit through you for sure. You heal. You are a badass, not in the conventional like guns a-blazing badass, but you are a badass in where you are changing the community. You are who you are. And you don't have fear. You walk through fear. You're making change in the community. That's how I see a badass. They stand in their individuality and they kind of bring people together. You're also an interfaith minister. One of the interfaith affiliation of Brevard. Did I get it right?
Yes.
That is, to me, that's badassery, because what you're doing is, I know the one event you do is at Thanksgiving, you have all faiths come together and celebrate together. How many people were there the last Thanksgiving?
We had 800 people attend the service and the refreshments afterwards, and it was at Holy Name of Jesus Catholic Church. And yes, we had over a dozen people on the stage, including 6 young people of all the different major religions. But I have to say, Interfaith Alliance, or Affiliations of Brevard, IFAB for short, was one of, we were on the steering committee, but it wasn't our brainstorm. We partnered with several other interfaith organizations. But this is that movement. This is today, too. It's all, change is going to happen as we connect with other people and we collaborate and we co-create. So, that's just what today is about too, being here and seeing what the heck is going to happen.
I know.
When I sit in this chair of look at you and talk to you, like what's going to transpire.
I always take Elizabeth on like a ride because she never knows what she's going to get with me sometimes. But together we're good alchemists together. We kind of support each other in our way. But you're right. This time in society and community, it's like we have to put our differences aside to come together at a level of spirit where we are all one and we can all like celebrate together, even if we have a different faith structure, and to me that's badassery. That is what's needed in the world today. If we're gonna have peace, if we're gonna have harmony, if we're gonna feel safe and
and I want to say too that we want to bring our differences with us. This was one of the themes in the United in Thanksgiving event, is to go beyond tolerating our differences, our diversity, to celebrating them. And the realization that we are strongest in our experience of oneness, not when we blot out, oh, I can't know that about you because that will close my heart or close my mind to you. But I can know anything and everything about you and find the oneness in our center, in our heart, in our capacity for love and connection. So, we don't want to, just on the way here, hearing more of the news about what's happening in Australia and that 500,000 animals have died in the wildfires. That's a lot of diversity. So healing, the energy healing we're talking about today is partly every individual knowing that as we heal, whatever is blocking us from connecting, loving, celebrating each other, celebrating ourselves, is also got to trickle out or ripple out to everything else on this planet.
Definitely. We talk about community, and it's not just community of humans, as you're saying. We're all on this planet together, and then if you even want to extend it out, we're all in this universe together, right? So it's about connection and realizing we all are in this unified field, and it's love.
Yes.
It's love. Yes. So let's see, what do we want to... another thing about you that I didn't mention is you're a poet and a writer. And she didn't bring her books to show today, but she has some fabulous books. But I might have to get her to read at least one poem maybe sometime during this broadcast. We'll pick one out. But she, a recurring theme for you for your writing that I find is love. And I guess, what do you want to say about do you want to say anything about your poetry, your writing? How did you get into even doing that?
Sometime last year, I came across letters that my grandfather had saved that were passed down after he passed to my dad, that somehow found their way to me. And I found letters that I had written to my grandparents when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I had two sisters. One was 2 years younger and one was 2 years older. They still are.
Yeah.
And all their letters were there too. So the younger sister would have the sweetest little 5 lines of a grandmommy and granddaddy. And my older sister would be, a quickly scribbled off page of writing. And I found this one letter from me, and I must have been 9 or 10. It was 6 pages, both sides, handwritten.
Wow.
And like a lot of us, that we come in with something. We come in naturally with what we love. And I came in, I think, with a love for stories and writing and reading. I could never get enough of reading and poetry. But like a lot of us, that doesn't get emphasized or highlighted when we're growing up so much. So we kind of put it, especially if you're creative in any way, that a lot of times that creative part of us just kind of, well, that's not the practical thing. That's not going to bring you in that paycheck.
Right.
That's not going to serve you in this real world. So coming back to writing and finding that when I feel connected to spirit, or I want to, just when I want to feel connected to spirit, and I can sit down, pick up a pen and breathe, get quiet inside, listen, and just allow whatever is moving inside to have a voice. And I think that kind of brings us to the topic of healing, doesn't it? Because
I was just thinking that.
it's all about allowing the different parts of us that perhaps never got to speak, say what their needs were, what their feelings were, or even if they tried, it wasn't heard, it wasn't witnessed, it wasn't validated. So there's a healing that happens at any point in our life when somebody is finally sitting just like you are right this moment. You're hearing me.
I am.
And your facial expression and the tone of your voice and the look in your eyes are all telling me, and any part of me that's like, oh, Trish is there. It's like validating, and it's healing, and it's affirming.
You know, so writing I love how you put that. It's listening to the parts of you inside that may not have a voice sometimes, or the voice has been squashed either by you, or me, or a parent, or society, or whatever. It's giving that part a chance to have a voice and speak and come out. So, you know, maybe people that are listening that feel like, even if you don't feel like you're a writer, you know, I'm a professional writer, just to pick up a journal, or just, it doesn't even have to be this official fancy journal, a notebook from the dollar store, you know, and a pen that writes kind of smooth.
Yeah, pens
or
are important.
whatever. Yeah, and just let it out. It doesn't have to be perfect grammar, perfect punctuation. Just let it flow, and at least start there. And that is a healing process.
It is. And studies have shown, you know, studies of psychotherapy, that when journaling is involved in that process, you get effects 10 times faster.
Oh,
so
wow.
you might be in counseling once a week or once a month or whatever, but if you are journaling in your own time about your own internal process, then you are going to make progress so much faster in your healing.
I just had a guest on, it was almost a month ago now, and the way she journals is different. It's for manifesting, you know, writing like to the future and what you want to create. So, you know, we could have several journals. We could have one just to get those inner parts out, right? And to let healing happen. We could have one for manifestation and our wishes, one that's more like, here's my short stories or poetry. So it's okay if we have more than one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually my second book comes out of the letters that I wrote to my beloved.
What's the name of it?
It's called The Butterfly Book, The Inner Journey to the Beloved. The Inner Journey, because I hadn't met him yet. I didn't know who he was or where he was or when he was going to show up. But someone had given me this beautiful book, and it was called I called the Butterfly Book because it was a book of Japanese woodblock prints of butterflies that didn't have any words on the pages, just these beautiful, with a lot of space. So I wrote a letter every day. Dear beloved, dearest beloved, dear sweetheart, every day for over a month, And there was a lot that moved during the time of what I got really soon after I started the process was that this was a real relationship to me. It wasn't just my imagination.
And it's a relationship that, like you said, he wasn't even in your life yet. You were writing it to your future partner.
But in the moment, it wasn't future. As I'm sitting down, I'm connecting on some level with a real human being right now as I'm writing this letter to
Like at
him.
a soul level, you think?
Soul level, spiritual level, who knows?
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had that thing with the two of us where a healing session in which I said, it's a good thing time isn't linear. Because that's what we experience in healing. But I just want to say that the first half of the book that I ended up publishing are those letters. And the second half of the book is actually meeting him, falling in love, getting married. And I have to say, we've been married 16 years, and it keeps getting better.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And
awesome.
If the book, you can buy the book on your website?
Yeah,
if someone would want to?
Or on Amazon.
On Amazon, the Butterfly book, Elizabeth Stamper.
Elizabeth Stamper. Yeah,
Okay.
The
And
Butterfly book.
Okay, and we're gonna take a break here in a minute, but before we do, I have to talk about a badass event that's coming up at the end of this month. It's January 31st through February 2nd. It's called the Manifesting Event with Tasha Chen. She was on the show a few weeks back, and I just went to an event where we did a manifested board for our money, and it was just fantastic how she leads meditation and you go within and work with beliefs around money and prosperity and realize it's more than just cash. It is about money, but it's also about other richness in your life. So that event is, again, January 31st to February 2nd in Stuart, Florida. And you can go to themanifestingevent.com if you would like more information about that or to register for that event. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
Hey there, this is Jesse Hall, and I want to remind you to tune into Business Elite Brevard Edition. And what we do on Business Elite Brevard Edition is bring to you some of the biggest movers and shakers on the Space Coast. These could be industry leaders, tech innovators, and social influencers. And what we do is kind of bring them on, ask them some of the most relevant questions that you may not know about. And these are people who may not be in the news, but they are making moves behind the scenes. Again, tune in. Business Elite Brevard Edition.
Hey, it's Vinny with the Vinny Marino Podcast Show. I want you to join me Wednesday evenings as we tackle all the crazy headlines and uncover what's missing. Also, we will have exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and not afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and take you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. It's the Vinny Marino Podcast Show, raw, unedited talk all the time, straight to your dome. Live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts.
All right, we're back with BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, Mystics, and I'm just saying hi to Sarah and to Robin. They're both listening on Space Coast. Well, this is Space Coast Podcast Network, but they're listening on Facebook. And Robin is saying that the volume's a little low, Jesse. So we're gonna, we gotta try to talk a little louder. Talk to the guy on the wall. Elizabeth.
Okay, yeah. There's my guy over there.
So thank you for your comments and suggestions. And we do welcome anyone that does want to ask questions or comment to go ahead and type those into to the Facebook page. So Elizabeth, so we were just talking about how writing can be a very healing thing. And we were also talking about the parts, that it's giving these parts of ourselves a chance to have a voice. I know in your work as a licensed mental health counselor and in my work as I do a therapy called somato-emotional release, it's a type of body work, that we're working with these parts of people to try to bring, give these parts a voice and an awareness and maybe some healing around that. Do you want to talk about any of that or add to that?
Well, I like that your somato means body, emotional. So somato-emotional release, to recognize this is part of healing, no matter if you're coming at it as a massage therapist, a counselor, cranial, sacral, energy, Reiki, is the awareness that we all are this energy that's also embodied right now, and emotions that are energy are often held back in the body. And as we get in touch with a part that's carrying some baggage, some unresolved, unhealed emotions from the past, we can often locate it in the body and facilitate that clearing, that release through any of these ways. So it's come a long way, I think, from the old idea that psychotherapy only happened when a guy sat behind you and you lay on a couch and you just rambled for an hour and he didn't say much. And it usually was a he.
Yeah, back then, yeah.
But that's over 100 years ago, and just to know that our understanding of healing on every level has come so far.
It has. And when we're going to get into energy healing, and how that is, something in the ancient times it was being done, and now it's getting a little more, acceptability. But one of the components we talked about the parts and how it's important, like, to have some integration, or there's this concept of an inner healer that kind of goes along with that. And in the craniosacral work, Dr. Upledger called it the inner physician. And now we've kind of coined it inner wisdom. And on your website, you talk about the inner healer, which I feel all three are the same thing.
Yeah.
And so how do you view this inner healer inside?
Well, let me say that I first came across that term from Stan Groff in the holotropic breathwork. He was the founder of holotropic breathwork, which I've been helping facilitate for years, and other forms of breathwork. And breathwork is one of those healing experiences where there's so much trust in the inner healer, because often in one way of doing breath work, a person is just given the instructions on how to breathe in a certain connected way, conscious connected way, and they lie down, and if they feel safe, that whoever's holding the space for them, facilitating that, if they feel safe and they do that breathing, their inner healer can take them on a journey through some places in their past, through spiritual realms. But the end result oftentimes, and I tell you, I got into it because the first time I did this breath work, I was so blown away by the experience I had in that 1 hour, having known nothing about it. And I was just so blown away. That was 35 years ago or more. But that who makes that happen? How did that happen? That you could go on a journey, you could revisit places of your past, you could connect to pockets of emotion that you had no idea you were still carrying. You could have cathartic releases of different emotions, the whole range of emotions.
Yep.
Hysterical laughing, hysterical crying, grieving. It's like we're all carrying around baggages of things that have happened to us, how we felt and how we thought about it, but in the moment that it was happening, can't deal with this right now. Goes in the bag, you know, goes in the suitcase, goes in the suitcase. So the inner healer we trust as the one who says, okay, today I'm taking you to see Trisha Schmalhofer. And when you get there and you experience what you need to, you'll know why I brought you here today. That's the guide inside you that says, what's this about breath work? I think I need to go just try it out, see what that's. Or it's the one that says, why don't I just go walk on the beach for an hour? Because my healing is going to come. That's the inner healer. It's a voice that we can cultivate being able to hear it more clearly, more in the moment, through meditation, through a spiritual practice that quiets down the other voices in our head.
Yes. The mental chatter voices. Yeah. I like how you describe that, because the inner healer can chime in whenever. You could be reading an article in the newspaper and all of a sudden there's something that jumps out at the page, or it's something you feel in that lower belly that's saying, this might be something I might want to look into. Or you meet somebody and there's a connection, or someone can be telling you something about your health. You need to take this, right? But that inner healer inside of you is like, no, that isn't what I need. But thank you for your opinion. But, follow that inner healer, follow that inner guidance. And it might just be, go sit in the woods for an hour. Maybe that tree has something it needs to share with you, or the ocean waves. I've learned so much from nature. My inner healer definitely draws me into nature a lot for my healing and my connection. And I think from a more science perspective, with the cranial work, here you have this doctor that's around other doctors that's saying, hey, here's this thing called an inner physician that I'm working with. And they're like, well, this guy's a quack. But he could actually feel a pulse in the body that responded to his touch. It actually would turn off and on and change. And he was like, something's talking to me through this pulse. He called it the craniosacral rhythm. And as a therapist, that's what we kind of listened to. And then as my intuition developed, there was other things that the person's inner physician or inner healer, or their body consciousness, I've called it too. It's that ecosystem in there that's alive, right? And full of, ready to provide information to help heal and balance. It's really a sacred thing. And, being a therapist of any sort, a talk therapist, a breathwork facilitator, a manual therapist, it's, realizing that we are facilitating the person's own healing. We're not causing the healing.
Yeah. I was having lunch today with a mutual friend of ours, Daylight.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Daylight.
And we were talking about healing. And I think what we just came down to was something that I feel deeply, strongly, is that if somebody walks through my door for a session of one kind or another, something in me, maybe my inner healer, knows that I'm only here to love this person
Mm-hmm.
and to have the opportunity to fall in love with this person. And if, when they're showing up, there's something in their story that I find hard to love, then there's my healing is involved in that. To be able to open my heart even wider to allow with a compassionate presence, embrace.
I just got chills when you said that. I think before we started, I said how I see it is my inner healer is working with your inner healer. And so it's like our inner healers, which I see as too like our spirit, brings you to somebody for a reason or brings them to you. And so healing happens on both sides.
Absolutely.
And then it even, when we're talking about energy healing and energy work, I mean, that even can extend out into the auric field, the biofield, out into the community. I mean, it's healing doesn't just stop at the skin.
Yeah.
It extends out. We're going to go to break in a minute, but I see a question from Joanna. Hi, Joanna. Are there any contraindications for breath work? She was asking.
Yes, and if you're going to do breathwork is such a general term, and traditionally don't be pregnant when you're doing it. Certain kinds of hypertension or cataracts, and I've had people come to group breathwork sessions that really wanted to do it, so I would let them lie down and just do a kind of a normal, more meditational breathing, and they would get something from the group energy, from their intention that brought them there that day, while they didn't have to do the conscious, connected, more intensified kind of breathing method.
Right.
So you're going to have people in a room of doing breath work. You can do it one-on-one, of course, but who are just, they're breathing a mile a minute. Anyway, it can be a lot of different forms.
Yeah.
And there'll be people that are just more a very slow, deep, meditational breathing.
Yes. We're going to keep going with breathwork because I wanted to add a few things, but because we do have to go to break, but before we do, I want to talk about Body by Brenda. Can you hand me that little container? I have a little one here, and I'm going to smell it as I talk about Body by Brenda because it is so luxurious. The one I have here is Revive and Refresh, and it smells citrusy. And these products are so clean. And the ingredients, there are no chemicals whatsoever in these. And we all tried it in the beginning. And what did you say about it, Elizabeth? It was luxurious.
So he said luxurious.
Oh, Jessie said luxurious.
I said it smells so good I could eat it.
Yes, and you probably could with these ingredients. But BrendaSwanson.com is how you can order these. She also makes bath salts, which she recommends you do that. You take the bath with the salts, and while your skin's so moist, you put this on. She created this because other products she had to keep reapplying, and she wanted to make something you could put on your skin, and it feels luxurious, and it stays on, and it actually heals your skin while you wear it. She uses certified grade essential oils in here. And so BrendaSwanson.com, Body by Brenda, check it out.
Are you in the market for a new home? Perhaps you need to sell your old home and downsize or relocate. Hey there, my name is Jesse Hall with eXp Realty, and I offer professional real estate services right here on the Space Coast. Give me a call, 321-877-8737 for all of your real estate needs. Again, 321-877-8737 for all of your real estate needs. Buy, sell, invest with the best. Find out more at 321-BuySellInvest.com.
All right. This is Doug Monda,
This is Karen Monda.
And Chris Hadaway.
and we're the host of Survive, the new podcast brought to you by the Survive First Foundation, a nonprofit organization assisting first responders and their families in need of mental health support due to the lifestyle of being a first responder. So, Chris, tell us what we're going to have.
We're coming to you from retired and active law enforcement officers as well as their spouses to discuss the responder life.
Don't forget, this is an unedited and raw podcast, so we need your interactive suggestions and advice to help us help others.
So find us live on our Survive First Facebook page and join in the conversation, or find us on demand on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you listen to podcasts from the Space Coast Podcast Network to you.
Okay, we're back. BAM, Badasses, Alchemist Mystics. This is Trisha Schmalhofer here with Elizabeth Stamper, and we're sitting here smelling Brenda's body butter before we come on, because it smells so clean. It's lovely. So I wanted to keep talking about breath work because you said there's so many different kinds, and because I've done it with you and had really powerful experiences, I took a course with Open Mind Zen with Al Rappaport, and he called it Zen breath work, and it was a little different, and there was a lot more. We actually did Reiki and hands-on during the breath work, which was really powerful, and I facilitated a group, and when you had said about the pregnant women, we did have one pregnant woman in it, and all we did differently was she sat up against the sofa and, yes, found a breathing pattern that she was comfortable with. And it really got her into a state of relaxation rather than the more cathartic, alchemical, And I wanted to say, too, if someone hasn't tried breath work, that sometimes when you first do it, don't be discouraged if you don't have a big, huge... because Elizabeth and I did, you don't have to have like a big, huge experience. Some people get into the breathing and sometimes when it's a newbie, they're just very concerned about, am I breathing right? Am I not breathing right? And it's all okay. It's all good. So trying not to have expectations when you're going into breath work is good.
Well, they say how we show up in breath work is how we show up in life.
Oh, that's deep. Yeah.
Because all you're doing is lying there breathing. Mm-hmm. And so all the usual tapes that go through your mind, the self-questioning, how much you trust, how much you can let go and trust that you're in safe hands and you can really surrender to this process. There are people that may need, like you said, am I doing it right? They may not be ready to surrender yet. And so maybe they get to know you a little bit better, and then they feel safer. I have, I did my breathwork training in New York in the mid-'80s. Before I had gone to school for mental health counseling, before I had really dived into that whole world of healing. It was my first introduction. I'd already been a meditator, but what I would find is, because I had that incredibly powerful first experience, and every experience was something for me, that people would come because they'd heard about it. They'd heard about rebirthing or breath work. And that's come.
The other name is rebirthing.
There's a lot of names these days for doing transformational kind of breathing. They would come and they would think, well, maybe nothing's going to happen. But a lot of people with that kind of beginner's mind, they hear my instructions for how to breathe. All of a sudden, they're having intense emotional releases. They're having great awarenesses and insights and memories. And maybe some physical sensations are arising for them. And at the end of the session, a lot of people would say, oh my goodness, that's so powerful. And they would also say something that I know I felt. My first breath work was like, okay, now I've gone on that ride. I'm lying here. And just breathing is so pleasurable. I'm so at peace and so in one with myself. And just taking the next breath is deeply, deeply blissful. And then, I had one woman say, everyone should do breath work. But a lot of these same people would never come back and do it again. And I think that once I started working with IFS, or internal family systems, about 10 years ago, internal family systems it says that some of the parts that we have are those exiles. They carry the unresolved trauma. They carry the emotions. And they're really, we do a lot to try to keep those out of our conscious mind and awareness. And then we have these other parts, and their job is to do that, to just kind of keep those out of awareness, to keep that stuff buried. They're the protector parts. So what I started to realize was that a lot of people would come, and there's something about the breath and not knowing that it was going to even happen that their journey took them right to the exiles. They did some unburdening. They felt that release. But the next day or 2 days later, the protector, who is just more of a habitual way of thinking about themselves, thinking about their life, the protector says, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
That was weird. How did that happen? Well, maybe we'll go back someday, but, someday.
Right.
So once I started to have a relationship with people first and make friends with their protectors, and their protectors could come to trust me, just trust in our relationship, then when they're ready to do breath work, it would not be so upsetting to their whole internal system.
Right. And because really, when you get into that motion of breath, which is really a fundamental, breathing is the basic fundamental function our body does. When you get into that rhythmic pattern, it like bypasses things, and it just goes right to the core, right? To the inner healer, to the core, and then things can just happen. I just think it's wonderful. And when you even think about breath of inspiration or respiration, the word spirit's right in there. And when you're doing it individually, it's very powerful because you're circulating spirit through your body. But in a group, it's so powerful because it's like spirits intermingling, and you have everyone having their experience, but yet it's so unified at the same time. It's a really powerful thing. So breath work definitely is a type of energy healing because you're moving energy throughout the room, throughout your body. There's all kinds of energy healing out there. We're going to talk a lot about Reiki because it's something Elizabeth and I share, and we're going to have our retreat coming up with Reiki. But there's also prana healing. That's the term from India. There's Qigong, which is the Chinese way of moving energy in the body. Nowadays we have people that do chakra balancing, or they use crystals to balance the body, and that's all considered energy healing because you're using frequency, you're moving energy. And even acupuncture, it's working with energy in the body, those channels, those meridians, like our circuit board, right? And even shamanic work. I do shamanic healing, and we're traveling through the different layers of the body, or even in the different worlds, and using elements, using animal energy, nature energy. So I definitely classify shamanic healing as energy healing for sure. So are there any I'm forgetting that you can think of?
Well, what comes to my mind as you're going through all these different forms that healing can take,
These labels. Yep.
Different ways to play. We love the diversity
It
again.
is. Yeah,
differences.
it's playing with the same thing, though, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, the idea that that if I can rest in a state where my energy field is resonating in a peaceful, calm state. So they say, you know how we say we go out into nature and we calm down.
For sure.
And there's a way of measuring energy, you know, the hertz or the cycles per second.
Yep.
So the measuring, according to Barbara Brennan, who wrote Light Emerging and Hands of Light,
I love her.
that energy measurement is about 7.8 hertz. When you are, that's the magnetic field or the frequency of the earth. So when we go out onto the earth, and let's say we're lying on the beach and we've been there for a little while, if someone were to measure our energy field, its frequency would now be in resonance. 7.8 with the earth.
It matches it.
They come in like tuning forks.
Yes, for sure,
know?
for sure.
So as a healer, I want to bring my energy field into that same resonance with the earth, because that's the most healing resonance that is available to us humans here.
Definitely.
And if I can, through my spiritual practice of meditating every day and my doing my own healing work, I have a way of connecting into that energy field, or extending that. Then sooner or later, the person I'm with, if that's their intention, if there's a little openness, a little willingness, then whatever one of these means we'll use, we will come into that resonance together. So that's what we're looking for, that it doesn't always happen, but ideally we love it when at the end of a session, both people are just in a state of profound peace.
Yes.
And a sense of feeling at one with themselves, with the other, with the earth, with all the situations in their life that haven't changed in the hour that you spent together. They're still going back to the same situations, but now being able to come back to it. And the busy mind isn't messing up their frequency, that this worry thought and that concern, but it's just, no, I can see clearly when I am at peace.
That's right. And that's, you can, if you're doing your practice and that resonance is at that nice peaceful level, when you do go into a chaotic room, you can shift that energy just by being you. So we have to do one more break. But while I'm pulling it up, I was thinking like sound healing is also energy healing, like you mentioned tuning forks, or just listening to music, or the sound bowls, or drums. I mean, I love all that, but that's all.
Listening to Robin sing.
Yes, Robin Krasny, robinandeddie.com. But yeah, exactly. Or your son's a singer.
My son's singing to
What's
me.
his band? Let's plug it.
Swim. Yeah, Swim.
His band is Swim. So before we go to break, though, the Annie Oakley Festival's coming up on February 8th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Palm Bay, Florida. The address is 620 Hurley Boulevard in Palm Bay. It is going to be a day of just experimenting with different firearms in a very safe manner. It's all benefiting the Palm Bay Police Department, Victim Services, Explorers, and the SWAT team. So it's all going to charity. It's a really fun day with lots of cool experiences, hosted by Femme Fatale Arms and Training, Maria Dockery, who just started a podcast here on the Space Coast Podcast Network. So you should check it out. I think they're calling it Lady Gun Show is the podcast name. But Annie Oakley Festival coming up February 8th. Check it out.
Hey guys, I'm Steve Vitani, Brevard resident and realtor with Remax Elite. I'm excited to announce my new very own podcast show, Steve Talks 321. We are on Facebook Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, talking about the most current real estate trends, hot topics, as well as anything along the Space Coast in Brevard County. I'm excited to share all of the latest happenings throughout Brevard County and also to hear from you. Please like this page, Steve Talks 321, and share this page and podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot. I hope to hear from you guys soon.
Hey, make sure you check out Space Cowboy Justice with your hosts, Blake Stewart and Paul Daly. We're going to be talking about interesting legal issues in the entertainment industry and everything geek. If you're into Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, comic books, we're talking about it. Coming at you from the Space Coast Podcast Studios.
Okay, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there with us. This is Trisha Schmalhofer with BAM Badasses Alchemist Mystics, here with Elizabeth Stamper, the peaceful, delightful Elizabeth Stamper. And, you know, we were just chatting on break how Barbara Brennan's books were really our first introduction into energy healing, of really like understanding. She was a pioneer, really, and making it understood. I was thinking too, I had done some, you know, channeling. I was raised Christian and Catholic to be specific, but went into the Episcopalian Church for a little while and did the Order of St. Luke, where we basically were doing energy healing with the Holy Spirit. And it's all the same thing. We're working with the same thing. And I later got attuned to Reiki because I was really feeling my inner healer was really nudging me to learn Reiki. And Reiki is the Japanese form of energy healing, and it means universal or God life force energy. And how I explain Reiki is, you know, we're saying all of this energy healing is really working with the same like God energy or life force energy or divine energy or whatever you want to call it, creator energy. And but it's like Reiki, I always say it's like a certain radio frequency. It's a certain channel of this energy. It's a little more specific. And in order to learn it, you have to get attuned by, they're called masters. I don't really love that word because I feel like we never really become a master. It's almost like you're always on the road to mastery. So by a Reiki teacher or a Reiki master, they attune the energy, and there's different levels of it. And when did you first get your Reiki 1 attunement?
I think it was 1996 with Lloyd Reiser, and I went on to do the different Reikis with him and facilitate workshops with him, Reiki workshops with him. He was also, by the way, for those people that like to know about lineage, he was like 3rd or 4th generation. So whoever, was it Madame Takata?
Yes.
Madame Takata is the one who brought Reiki from the originator in Japan. She came to Hawaii, and I think she only had about 13 or so people that she initiated as masters to carry on. Yeah. And so Lloyd's Reiki master was someone that Madame Takata had initiated. herself, given the attunements. So he was close to the source in that way. And then there was Mary McFadden, who lived around in this area too, and she was from that original group of people, and she was wonderful. So I did a workshop with her back in the 99 or 98 or 99.
Right.
So
They
wonderful
Asui,
people.
Dr. Asui is the one who developed it, or some say resurrected it, and then it's Hayashi, and then Takata learned from Hayashi.
Okay.
And the thing about Takata is she was a female. At first, they weren't going to teach her, not because she was a female, but she wasn't from Japan. Her parents were from Japan, but she was not. And they were worried about it basically going out of Japan. And she was healed from her disorder through Reiki. And they decided, it's important. They're inner healers. Obviously, we're talking to them to say, no, this needs to go out there. This needs to go through the world, because it is such a wonderful, loving, warm energy. When you receive a Reiki treatment, heat is usually the number one sensation people feel, but that feeling of peace and connectedness, they then said, no, you go ahead, and she brought it to Hawaii, and then Hayashi came and gave her grandmaster attunement, and then it just spread, because it is such a wonderful healing modality. And I always say it's kind of like a clean channel. It's a very direct channel to God. And when you get attuned to Reiki, sometimes your hands just turn on. Like, I'll be talking with someone, all of a sudden I get like heat, and no, it's not a hormonal hot flash. It's actually Reiki heat, or my hands will heat up. And sometimes it's appropriate to put my hands on the person or the animal, but that will just happen. Reiki will just turn on when it's needed. So do you want to add anything about your Reiki, either giving it or receiving it? What's it like for you?
I think that how I experience it now is that it's just part of most everything that I do in a healing session. That it's, I still will think and remember the symbols that you receive, and the words, and say the symbols, or say the words and see the symbols. So that's almost like a mantra that has power after a while. Anything that we have received that really does feel like a spiritual gift, that we then use and use and use. It's almost like as soon as we remember that and turn to it, something shifts inside. It's like it's opened up. So it's a clear, like you said, a clear channel or a clear portal to just being more connected to ourself, our Buddha nature.
Yes.
And while you were talking, you mentioned being Christian and St. Luke's, and always comes to mind, I love all those words in the New Testament that were in red because they were supposedly actually things that Jesus said.
Yes. Yes.
And I think of him as a master healer.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So that idea that he's walking through a crowd of people, and someone who sees that power in him of pure love, no judgment, just pure love, sees that and reaches out and is able to touch the hem of his robe.
Yes. Not even his skin.
Not even his skin, just the hem of his robe. And he knows right away, like you just said, felt something shifted, something went out of him, and he turns around and it's this woman.
Yes.
So there's something about how, as a healer, how do I evoke trust so that person who's in front of me can have enough faith, knowing that it's not coming from me, but coming through me, because God as source is available to all of us and is always only wanting our highest good, our well-being. And when it might look like healing can look like a lot of different things, it doesn't always look like curing.
Mm-hmm. No. Sometimes it doesn't look like curing. Sometimes it starts a process, or we don't know what journey it'll take us on. When I studied with the Order of St. Luke, what we did was look at all of the incidents in the Gospels of Jesus' healing, and they lined up the different Gospels that had different perspectives. Yeah. And we looked at how Luke was the physician, and so his perspectives were different than some of the others in Matthew's or Mark's, or some of them didn't, like a gospel wouldn't have that account in there. But the common thing is, and that was one of my favorites about the robe, because it was her faith that moved that energy. And that was one of the common themes throughout the whole course was, and Jesus even said it many times, it is faith that is healing.
Yeah.
That he was a conduit of the Holy Spirit, of God energy. And it's like the person that even would call out to him, Jesus, hey, can you heal my servant back in the, and he would just have to say, you have the faith, it's done. Just say the words. It's the faith. So we have to believe and be open and accept the energy, right?
Yeah.
It's the love. It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
So I'm seeing, darn it, we're out of time, because now we're getting into like some more juicy stuff. And
now I'm covered with chills.
I am
and
too.
visuals and,
We are going to have, it's one of our first Reiki immersions next weekend, January 10th and 11th. And my website, or my email's medhealersinfo@gmail.com. And Elizabeth, say how people can get in touch with you. What are your...
Facebook, Elizabeth Stamper, Elizabeth Hess Stamper, or Gmail, ehstamper@gmail.com.
Okay.
Real easy.
And elizabethstamper.com is your website,
Yes.
correct? Okay. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us. And we're going to see you in 2 weeks. I'm going to have Leah Williamson on talking about Qigong, Tai Chi, and her new book, Surfing the Sea of Qi. We'll see you soon.